Welcome everyone to a groundbreaking webinar series on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, presented by Gaining Vision 2020 in partnership with Connect for Life Charity. I'm Sean Pickard, and we are excited to bring you this transformative series of sessions that explore the interconnected themes of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Our mission is to create a platform that celebrates the uniqueness of individuals, promotes equitable practices, and ensures accessibility for all. Join us as we delve into thought-provoking conversations, exchange insights, and learn from experts in the field, all with the aim of fostering a more inclusive, diverse, and accessible society. Welcome to I.D.E.A. Do you know what this means? We like to start each session by acknowledging the land in which we call home. Gaining Vision 2020 acknowledges the lands which constitute the present-day City of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot Nations. Gaining Vision 2020 recognizes these people and their ancestors as people who inhabited the land since time immemorial. The City of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. Gaining Vision 2020 is actively working towards reconciliation by confronting our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory to recognize and uphold their treaty rights, and to support Indigenous peoples. Gaining Vision 2020 formally recognizes the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Melanie Malo is a seasoned educator with 25 years of experience and a passionate advocate for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. As an I.D.E.A specialist, she has been a trusted consultant in these vital areas, offering her expertise to organizations seeking to create inclusive environments. With over a decade of experience facilitating workshops and trainings for professionals, Melanie has honed her skills in empowering individuals and fostering positive change. Ladies and gentlemen, here to speak about people of all abilities, Melanie Malo.
Good day, Sean. How you doing?
Doing well, Melanie. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, and good day to everybody out there. Welcome. I encourage us all to have an open mind in this conversation. Many of us come together from different perspectives, different lived experiences. This may be a topic that you're an expert on, and perhaps you have lived experience, or perhaps it may be brand new. So I encourage you to be open to learning and growing alongside of us. There may be times that you may feel uncomfortable or perhaps even triggered, and I encourage you to do whatever is best for yourself to take care of yourself. If that includes pushing pause, getting up and stretching, grabbing a glass of water, whatever it looks like for you, please do it because your health and well-being is the most important. I'm really excited about this topic, Sean. Let's get to it.
Excellent. So let's find out what the intention for today is.
Okay.
And we are looking at inclusive by design, unlocking the power of accessibility for all. We have a few objectives here, Melanie. We're looking to raise awareness about accessibility, increase people's awareness about the importance of accessibility and its impact on the lives of people with disabilities, explore different types of disabilities, their unique challenges, and the significance of inclusive design in removing barriers and promoting equal opportunities. Our next objective, we'd like to understand legal and ethical considerations, provide people with a comprehensive understanding of the legal and ethical considerations related to accessibility, discuss relevant legislation and standards such as the Accessible Canada Act, the I.D.E.A Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and explore the moral imperative of ensuring accessibility for all. Our next objective is to explore inclusive design principles. We want to introduce people to inclusive design principles and best practices for creating accessible environments, products, and services. Cover topics such as universal design, user-centered design, and assistive technologies, highlighting practical strategies for incorporating accessibility from the outset of any project or initiative. Our next objective is to foster empathy and inclusive mindsets. Foster empathy and cultivate inclusive mindsets among people. We would like to encourage individuals to actively challenge stereotypes, biases, and misconceptions about disabilities. Facilitate discussions on fostering a culture of inclusivity, promoting respectful language and communication, and embracing diverse perspectives. Let's get into a few definitions, Melanie. Things like disability. a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities.
Now, I want to talk about that, Sean, because I know a lot of people don't like the term disability, less than. There's a lot of controversy on this, and some people like the term differently able, others like people of all abilities. And really, truly, the reason we use the term disability is because that's what the Government of Canada uses. So it's universal, we understand what it's all about, what we're talking about, but let's face it, the lingo changes year to year, day to day. So it's important for us to keep up to date with what is appropriate. And truly, anyone with a disability, all you need to do is ask how they want to be addressed or identified as. Is it an individual with a person with disabilities, a person with a disability, or forget the disability altogether? Completely up to them.
It all comes down to the individual.
100%.
Now, accessibility, we do have a couple of little subcategories for this
Okay.
one. But the quality of being able to be reached or entered, the quality of being easy to obtain or use, the quality of being easily understood or appreciated.
Do you notice, Sean, none of those have anything to do with disability at all?
There's not a single mention of the word there.
That's right, because accessibility is beneficial for everybody. Everybody wants to have equal access to things, whether it's a space, resources, information. We all want to have access to it.
And the next thing we have is barriers, what we were just talking about. We all want access,
Yep.
but barriers are anything that prevents a person with a disability from fully participating in all aspects of society because of their disability.
Now, when we think of barriers, sometimes we think of something physical, something that's in the way. Perhaps there's a staircase, there's no ramp or elevator. But barriers also could be attitudinal. It could be something that people have a bias about. Somehow, perhaps, things are not accessible on the computer to access. There's many different types of barriers.
There are indeed. Now, that kind of leads into our next definition, though, which is ableism, discrimination or prejudice against individuals with disabilities.
You know, we hear this term a lot, but the reality is people don't know what ableism is. Think about it this way. Now, I know I'm not sure about the men's washroom, Sean, but the ladies' restroom only usually has one accessible stall. And it drives me crazy when you go in and there's somebody in it and you're needing it because they have the bars, perhaps extra space for the wheelchair, whatever it is. But somebody comes out and they don't have any mobility device, they don't have a physical disability that warrants using that space. But that's ableism because they just think, oh, it's just another stall. But somebody in a wheelchair that needs those bars cannot use a regular stall. So something as simple as that is a form of ableism.
That's really amazing that something as simple as that can be a form of ableism.
Yeah.
But let's look at understanding disability and why accessibility is important. We want to create an all-inclusive atmosphere where everyone is seen, heard, valued, and can participate fully just as they are. And we're talking about things like speech.
Okay, so of course, so there are many different types of disabilities. So imagine not being able to communicate verbally with somebody because your speech is impaired. It might be a lisp, it might be you have a stuttering or stammering disability, or it may be that you are nonverbal completely. This can be something that can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. Think of a stroke survivor that may have aphasia after recovering and they've lost all capacity to use the words or they mix them up. This is very frustrating for people, but we have to understand if we're encountering somebody with a speech disability, we have to ensure that we allow them the opportunity to communicate in their format. Even if it is taking them a long time to get their thoughts out, we have to be mindful not to finish off their sentences. Let them speak, be patient, listen, and be open to hear. Perhaps they'll use a communication device. It could be a bliss board where they have images they point to, or it could be a computer that they program in what they want to say. Again, it may take us extra time to communicate with them. Just being aware that these are these amazing devices and technologies that allow people to communicate in many different ways.
Next up, we have motor.
So motor can be a couple of different things. It could be mobility, it could be motor skills, the fine motor skills, the gross motor skills. And again, it can come in all different shapes and forms. Think about an individual with cerebral palsy. Perhaps their motor skills are not so hands-on. Again, going back to the stroke survivor or any other physical disability, motor skills may take a little time for the person to do certain activities. They may use a mobility device, including a wheelchair or a scooter, anything that'll help them get around. But again, we need to make sure that the spaces that they're using are accessible. Motor also can be sometimes when you're having a bad day, you know, perhaps your mobility is off because you're having some vertigo or something going on that is just off. So motor can come into many aspects of it. And again, there's no cookie cutter solution. I think that's something we need to start right off the bat, is understanding everybody's disability is unique to that individual. You could have a group of people with the same disability, but it manifests differently for them. So we can't lump everybody into a group. I know we're going through it here just to cover the content, but if myself and somebody else with a visual impairment, we may have very different experiences. So we can't just assume one thing for everybody.
Now to look at the next one, it's auditory.
Auditory. Okay, so if you're deaf or hard of hearing, perhaps you're having some difficulties, or even if you have sensitivity to sounds. I know for myself, as I am blind, my hearing is very acute. I depend on it a lot. So when I hear a loud sound, I panic. I get scared easily. And a lot of people with various disabilities may have that sound sensitivity. Individuals on the autism spectrum also can be having sound sensitivity. So we have to be very, very mindful of that. So this, you also may think of somebody that uses closed captioning or American Sign Language, things like that. So these are the types of disabilities.
Now for us to move along, our next one is visual.
Okay, as I mentioned myself, I am legally blind. So we have to first know that legally blind means different things. It could be somebody with absolutely no sight, somebody with partial sight. It's different for everyone, but again, this is anybody that has loss of vision, whether it's the radius of their field of vision, could be acuity of it. Legally blind actually is 20/200, Sean. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so anything you see 20 feet away, or 200 feet away, I would have to be 20 feet. And that's even if I could see it. So again, everybody's eyesight is different, and we need to ensure that we understand there's different ways to communicate with these individuals. Perhaps they use Braille, large print, or of course, as we know, technology has come so far, a smart device that will talk to us.
Are they really smart if they talk all the time?
Not so smart. And I can tell you, Siri does not always work well, with me at least.
Oh, the joys of the life,
Yes.
isn't it? Well, now we're moving into my territory, Melanie, with cognitive.
Okay, yes, so cognitive can mean a couple of different things. So you mentioned yourself, so brain injury, acquired brain injury, but also we have developmental disabilities, the autism spectrum, somebody with intellectual disability, but also, Sean, we have to think about it this way. There's so many invisible disabilities out there that we may not even know. So mental health, anxiety, depression, other mental illness categories, but stress is a huge one. One other one that not many people don't talk about is learning disabilities. It could be dyslexia, it could be just something that is a processing disorder, something that may take people a little bit more time to process information. The challenge is, though, with invisible disabilities, people can't see it, so they don't think it's there. So when somebody perhaps takes a longer time to do stuff, they get frustrated, what's wrong with this person? But there's even more to invisible disabilities. Think about it. Somebody with arthritis, fibromyalgia, or any other pain-related disability may go unnoticed. And when you're in the workplace, somebody that has to get up and move around a lot, you think, what's wrong with them? Why do they keep getting up? Or they're hobbling, or whatever it might be. So a lot of judgment comes with this one because invisible disabilities can impact people a lot, and nobody will see it, so they automatically can't put two and two together that it's a disability.
It is a fun road to wander down.
Now let's talk about yours, Sean, because this is your specialty here.
Yes.
So what sort of things should people be aware of with cognitive disabilities?
A big thing for me, just as an example, is when I go to the store
Okay.
and they ask how you want to pay. Well, it's a simple word, debit.
Right.
It doesn't come up at that moment. And I'm sitting there, this thing.
Yes, so that loss of word for that moment.
That loss of words for that moment.
But it's not like that all the time, right? For you. It may be a better day that you're kind of soaring through and then it's fine.
I'd say it happens about 80% of the time.
80%, okay.
I'm used to it, so it's just, It doesn't freak me out or anything like that
Yeah.
now. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. But again, somebody that may come up, encounter you for one first time and think, what's wrong with him?
Well, I've also got my little community that I've created. I go to the same places all the time.
So they know.
They see it. They know
Yeah.
I'm good.
And you know, it's funny that you just said that. Myself, using my white cane, if by chance I've left my white cane at home or it's broken or whatever, I try to manage without it. But if I bump into somebody, somebody's like, are you drunk? What's wrong with you? So, you know, you have to be mindful. Again, never assume. That's a big, big thing. And with all of these types of disabilities, one thing that we think it's most important for all of us to understand is that because there's no cookie cutter solutions, we cannot assume that everybody needs support or help. So we should always ask the question. Sean, do you know what that is? Because I say it to you all the time.
Ooh, what can I do to support you?
You got it. It's a personal ask.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Now, let's look at the importance of an inclusive environment, Melanie. An inclusive society is one that recognizes and values the uniqueness of every individual, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. In this context, creating an accessible and inclusive environment for persons with disabilities is not just a social obligation, it is an opportunity to foster a more compassionate and equitable world for everyone. What do you think?
Absolutely. And this is the thing. I think, you know, if we look at what's happening in our world today, our population is aging. And before you know it, majority of people in the world are going to have some form of disability. And if we just make sure that everything is accessible, and when I'm talking about accessibility, I'm talking about our world that we live in. The curb cuts, yes, they were created to help people in wheelchairs and with mobility devices, but I can tell you a mother with a baby carriage or with a shopping cart is very, very happy that that curb cut is there. Think about somebody on a bicycle or rollerblades. They don't have to jump off the curb, they just slide down. Another thing is automatic door opener if your hands are full of groceries. So by making our world universally designed and it's inclusive, it's helping everybody. And this is going to help us in the long run. And this is going to help us in the long run because it's going to be accessible already because it's the norm. When we have an inclusive community as well, people see past the disability. They don't focus on it. They're not different. They're just themselves. They just happen to have a disability. Wouldn't that be a beautiful world to live in?
Oh, that would be a beautiful place to be. Now let's talk about empowerment and independence. An inclusive environment empowers persons with disabilities to participate actively in society, promoting their independence and self-reliance. Accessible spaces and services enable individuals to engage in education, employment, and social activities without unnecessary barriers. Melanie?
Yeah, I don't know about you, Sean, but I love being able to go places on my own. And if I know that everything is accessible on one level, at least has wayfinding and the different curb cuts and tactile things that I need, I can navigate by myself. And it makes me feel that I can do whatever I need to do. When it comes to education, being able to have accessible technology to help me access the information, that makes me feel like I'm still part of the whole entire group. And this is a wonderful feeling. How about you? Have you thought of any situations that you think about this?
Oh, I have many of those situations on a daily basis, probably too many for me to actually put into a cognitive thought right now. There's just way too many that go on.
Well, how about this, Sean? I know that you are very independent when it comes to your role at Voices for Ability Radio. And do you feel that you are able to feel empowered and therefore able to empower others?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's amazing when you can get all the pieces to go right.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about diverse perspectives and talent for a little bit here. Embracing inclusivity allows organizations and communities to tap into the diverse perspectives and talents of persons with disabilities. Diverse teams and communities are proven to be more innovative, creative, and effective. Melanie?
Well, think about it this way. In the world right now, individuals with disabilities is an untapped market of talent for persons with disabilities. People haven't really looked at them for hiring, but individuals with disabilities are excellent problem solvers because we have to be adaptable, we have to be flexible, and we have to be innovative, creative, think outside the box for us to tackle life in general. And when you have people with disabilities on your team, they bring those skill sets to the table, as well as different perspectives from different insight. Having people with disabilities as part of your team makes you all work collaboratively together from different perspectives, similar to any other person from another marginalized group. So I am excited that going forward, people are going to start to tap into this market of talent and hire more people with disabilities.
Oh, that would be beautiful if they did that.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to social cohesion and unity.
Okay.
Inclusion fosters a sense of belonging and unity within society, reducing stigma and promoting understanding and respect for differences. An inclusive community thrives on empathy and cooperation, benefiting the well-being of all its members. Melanie?
I don't know about you, Sean, but I love feeling as I belong. Going to a community, going to work, going somewhere where everybody knows. You remember Cheers and Norm will work and everybody go, Norm, hi. You know, you feel like you're part of the family. Having that feeling at your workplace or a community where you go on a regular basis, for people to accept you just as you are, whether you're in a wheelchair using a mobility device or you're blind, you're hard of hearing, whatever it might look like, feeling part of that not only is the amazing feeling for that individual, but we also learn and grow from one another. I know that there's been many times I belong to different groups, and having somebody come and help guide me to where I need to go, they feel like they're part of it. They're not only helping me, but they're also learning about the situation that they may not have been exposed to elsewhere. I find the more inclusive we are in our communities, in the workplace, in community groups, everybody just seems to get along and collaborate better, and it's just a beautiful sense of belonging.
It's beautiful when it happens.
Yes, but when you don't see it, it can be a little uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
You know, the person's on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's move into human rights and dignity. Creating an accessible environment is a fundamental human right for individuals with disability, as enshrined in international conventions like the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And respecting the dignity and rights of individuals with disabilities is an ethical imperative. Melanie?
You know, I find a lot of people figure people with disabilities, they're dumb. They don't get it. They don't need to. We don't have to worry about them. They'll just go with it. But the human rights is a right for everybody. We deserve to be treated with respect, dignity, and of course, to be able to make our own decisions. So not only is it the right thing to do, but it is the law. So we have to be mindful of this as well.
It's sad that we have to have a law for that.
Well, I know, and we have lots of them in Canada. I know we're going to get into them a little bit later, but it's really amazing to see how many people don't see it as a human right. They just figure, oh, well, they're less than, so we don't have to treat them the same way. It's quite sad. In 2023, we're having the same conversation.
Now, that slides into where we're going next, which is customer and client satisfaction.
Yes.
That can be a big one these days. Businesses and organizations that prioritize accessibility and inclusivity often see increased customer and client satisfaction. Accessible services cater to a broader audience, resulting in positive brand reputation and loyalty. And that's got to be a big one in today.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because, as we mentioned earlier, the untapped market of individuals with disabilities for employment. But in the world of people with disabilities, there's $1 billion worth of spending power. $1 billion, Sean. Now, it's not just individuals with disabilities, but it's their families, their support systems. All of these people are more likely to shop and do business with companies that are inclusive and accessible. If you can't get into a store or an office because of accessibility, you're losing business. If you don't have access to inclusive opportunities to pay, you don't have customer service training for individuals with disabilities, and you don't hire people with disabilities. These are all barriers of why people may not shop there. So it makes good business sense. It's a good business case why everybody should ensure their workplace is fully accessible and inclusive.
Let's move into compliance with laws and regulations. In many countries, including Canada, there are laws and regulations mandating accessibility in public spaces, workplaces, and digital platforms. Things like the I.D.E.A.
So Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. There's many standards: customer service, transportation, employment, information and technology, and communication. There's so many of them, Sean, but these are standards that businesses in Ontario need to abide by, and there are fees and there are fines and things you have to be compliant with. as well, the Accessible Canada Act has many different things for all of Canada to follow. We also have to look at the web content accessibility guidelines, because in order for you to be fully accessible, some websites have to make sure they're AA, AAA standards, because as we evolve, these are parts of these standards. And now, let's be real, compliance is a question, because big companies, they have the money, they should have an accessibility plan, they should have all of these things in place, and they should be fully accessible. But they're not. But who's watching it? Who's monitoring this? And unfortunately, there's still a long way we need to go. I can say, though, there has been some definitely moves in the right direction for transportation. You know, a lot of the buses are now fully accessible. We have talking stops. We have the closed captioning for people. There's a lot of good words toward there. Motions towards reaching full compliance, but we still have a lot of work to do. We also have to think of the Human Rights Code here in Canada. That's another big one that is for so many people, because unfortunately in the workplace we still have discrimination cases happening.
That is unfortunate that's still happening today. But let's move things forward looking at the positive side of things.
Absolutely.
How this can create positive social change. Embracing inclusion sends a powerful message of acceptance and support, leading to positive societal change and breaking down stereotypes. It encourages a shift towards greater awareness of disability rights and advocacy. Melanie?
Absolutely. So I think now, again, because the increased number of people with disabilities, it is a little more common to see people with various abilities in the community. People are more open to have dialogue about it and ask questions from a place of curiosity and respect. That being said, there's also a lot of people that are now willing to step up and speak up when they see something that's not accessible. Advocacy is a big part, not just for individuals with disabilities, but for their allies. Speaking up when things aren't done correctly, when there's a barrier, when people haven't considered accessibility, this is more common, and this is what we want to see for social change. Everybody should be accepted just as they are. As we mentioned, with the number of people with disabilities increasing, it's going to be the norm for so many of us. I hope by the time you and I, Sean, are in our 80s, everything will be set. We'll be good.
Let's hope we're good then.
Yeah.
Our next slide is a little bit of a visual one, Melanie, so I'll describe it for you here.
Okay.
On the left hand of the page, we have an orange arrow pointing to the right, and the arrow says, "Don't assume you know what someone needs." On the right-hand side of the page, we have a green arrow pointing to the left that says, "Ask how I can support you for better clarification." Now, in between the two arrows, we have the word versus, VS.
Okay, yes. And a story comes to mind. When I was first using my white cane, I was waiting at the corner. It happened to be a bus stop. But somebody assumed that I needed help crossing the street. So they took my arm and started walking me across the street. And I'm like, I needed to be back there for the bus stop. But again, this person was trying to be kind. They were trying to help me because they assumed I wanted to cross the street. So again, going back to that thing we said at the very beginning, ask how can I best support you? Because again, it could be different for everyone. And we can't read people's minds, although it would be a great gift.
And I wonder how upset that person was because they were helping you.
They were helping me. I thanked them profusely, said, but however, I was waiting for the bus. Could I get you to guide me back? And I was brand new, so I didn't want to cross the street on my own at that point. So it was very nice of them to walk me back.
I'm glad they did.
But I'm pretty sure they wouldn't assume any more going forward.
I would hope not after that.
If I could also say, Sean, the other thing is for people, if you offer to help somebody and they say, that's okay, I'm fine, please don't be offended. Because again, we really love our independence. We want to make sure that we're trying our very best. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask others just because somebody said no thank you.
Very important to ask.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, moving on to the benefits of inclusion. So let's move on to the benefits of inclusion, Melanie.
Okay.
Positive impact of including individuals with disability and the value of diverse perspectives and contributions. What do you think?
Well, let's face it, as I mentioned before, everybody has different gifts, talents, and abilities. And individuals with disabilities are really great at problem solving, really good at patience, and also sometimes you'll find they have a really creative way of looking at things. By including everyone, not only does everybody feel like they're playing an active part, but also people learn from one another's skill sets. And I think if we ignore certain demographics of people, we're missing out, not only on ourselves, but as a collaborative team.
It's a very unique point that we can be missing out.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about some of the disadvantages of a non-accessible environment.
Okay.
So things like an audience may not be engaged, a loss of sales or revenue, a loss of possible partnerships, relationships, and legal liability. What do you think on those points?
Okay, so let's face it. How many of you have been in a presentation that has PowerPoint or the person is talking like this? Now, if there's a PowerPoint presentation, I can't see it. I have no idea. So that's why we have Sean here helping me out by describing what's on there. So when you're giving a presentation, you want to be as engaging as possible, using vocal variety, ensuring you're talking about what's on your slides to make sure everybody is included. Remind me of the other part there, Sean, on that slide?
Oh, we're looking at a loss of sales or revenue?
Yes.
Possible loss of partnerships or relationships, and legal liability.
Okay, so definitely, as we mentioned, if you can't get into a store to spend your money, you're not going to spend it there. If you're not having people that work for you with disabilities, perhaps their families aren't going to shop with you. And then absolutely, there's always going to be the opportunity of losing the talent you have if you don't have an inclusive environment. And definitely, you're going to be possibly up for some discrimination charges or human rights violations. So you may be charged if you're not being fully inclusive.
It's amazing that we still have to face that sometimes.
It's true, but hopefully we'll get there one day.
But those are barriers and challenges, Melanie,
Yes.
and we all come across them. But let's talk about some of the common barriers to accessing opportunities. Let's talk about ableism and misconceptions, universal design, and incorporating accessibility into webinars, websites, and other platforms.
Okay, so let's go one by one, Sean, because it's a lot of information right there.
So that's moving us into barriers and challenges, Melanie.
Okay.
Let's look at some of the common barriers. Common barriers accessing opportunities, maybe.
Okay, so accessing opportunities, absolutely. So everything from starting out with the recruitment stage, you may not be putting it out to the right target market. People may not have access to that job opportunity, or it could be opportunities to participate fully in an event if the event space is not inclusive. The other one?
Next, we have ableism and misconceptions.
So of course, if we are assuming or perhaps have an ableistic way of thinking of things, we may miss out on information and we may think we know what's happening but really have no idea. And somebody with a disability may be misunderstood because of those assumptions.
Now, this next one is very short, but it seems like big words. So help me understand universal design.
Okay, universal design, again, goes to making sure when we're designing spaces that we are thinking of everybody. Those curb cuts, those accessible door openers, wayfinding signage, signage that has graphics and images on it, so perhaps is not just for somebody that can't read English, but perhaps, you know, maybe not have the ability to read, but they understand what an image looks like. So it makes sense for everybody. So we're designing a space so everybody is included. That also includes bathrooms, Sean. It includes, you know, whether it's a family bathroom, unisex bathroom. It's important for us to make sure that we're keeping all these elements when we're creating inclusive spaces and universal design. I think, you know, the more that we look at anything that's being built nowadays, universal design is definitely the format that all builders are using, as well as if you look at the community and city buildings, definitely universal design is at top of mind.
Now, what about incorporating accessibility into webinars, websites, and other platforms? How would we do that?
Okay, so it could be something as simple as making sure that we have accessibility features. There's a lot of apps and different things you can put on your websites to help people enlarge the font, the size of the font, the color contrast, having some closed captioning, and definitely if it's a webinar, we want to have opportunities for people not only to participate in the chat, but being able to join in verbally. We also want to make sure we are having opportunities for people to collaborate and different platforms, because Zoom may be accessible, but some of the other platforms are not fully accessible. So finding out from many different sources what works best for everybody, because I think what we forget is, again, that cookie cutter solution isn't for everybody. I know that I can use Zoom very comfortably. However, some people may not. Now, screen readers vary from person to person, as well as different speech software, and it may even be something that's using large print software. So keeping all of these accessible assistive devices is important, but then we got to think of those perhaps that have other sensitivities to the screen, the brightness, the sounds, all of these things. So really keeping those in mind when we're creating webinars, online platforms, including websites. Well, you know, when you get those really amazing looking websites that zoom, 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 there's so much activity going on, that can be very distracting for a lot of people with brain injuries, with autism. So they miss the information completely because of those bells and whistles, we'll call them.
So let's move into inclusive workplace practices, Melanie. What is needed for someone to create an inclusive work environment?
Well, let's start at the very beginning, your recruitment process. Making sure you're sending out the notifications to spaces that are fully accessible. So websites for persons with disabilities, organizations for persons with disabilities, and then of course having the interview process be fully accessible, whether that's extra help, extra time for any testing, helping filling in the forms and applications online because they're not always accessible. And then of course, when you're going through the process, once a person is hired, ensuring there's accommodations made for them. And that looks different for everybody. Making sure the policies and procedures in a workplace have accessibility in mind, whether that's the space, whether it's the way that information and communication is done, ensuring that, again, it's another element for inclusive policies. And then, of course, the job itself. Every job may need an accommodation. I can tell you there's been plenty of times I've heard about jobs in call centers where they expect you to do certain amount of calls within a period of time. Now, for somebody with a disability, that may not be possible because of their disability, their dexterity, perhaps they have eyesight challenges, whatever it is, you may have to adjust the quotas to be more realistic.
Well, that's great for the workplace, but what about the kids? Let's move on to education and learning.
Okay, so for kids, we have IEPs, individual education plans, and this helps the teachers understand how they have to accommodate their lesson plans to ensure the student is getting what they need. Now, what's also good is this is a good practice not only for the family, the kids, the students, the teachers, the educational assistants, and the principals. But even as you move into post-secondary schools, there's the accessibility offices at colleges and universities that can help students with accommodations and working alongside of the professors, ensuring that equal access for education is available. But that also goes on to lifelong learning, Sean. There's organizations across the globe that offer education systems, whether it's, let's say, Toastmasters International. It could be an additional lifelong learning for webinar series. Ensuring accessibility is part of this, where individuals with disabilities can participate fully. That mean having things in accessible formats, in Braille, large print, audible, whatever it looks like, making sure that opportunities are available so everybody can participate equally.
We also have a case study here to talk about a little bit, Melanie. Mohawk's accessibility researchers, along with students in the Accessible Media Production Program, provide expertise to help industry solve their digital accessibility challenges, combining accessibility and usability knowledge to deliver solutions that help organizations meet their accessibility requirements. That would be the web content accessibility guidelines, wouldn't it?
It's part of it, absolutely. So it's a digital platform, and this course was actually really great because many people with disabilities took the course, but also it educated people, those without disabilities, about the importance of making everything online accessible. Alt text for images, making sure that there's a description for each image to make sure that website has all those accessibility features, but also it brought awareness to how education needs to be handled in a digital platform, whether you're doing a webinar, an online course, or even a Zoom meeting. Think about that. Having accessibility become in the forefront, it starts to become embedded in our everyday life. Then businesses will start to adapt this format, and it goes on and on. But Mohawk is an excellent example of that, and I encourage everybody to take time to check out what their program looks like and how they made it accessible.
Now, let's move along to communication and language. You were talking about Zoom meetings on the last slide, something we all need to do. But let's talk about the importance of using inclusive language and communication techniques?
Okay, so I think, it's interesting. The English language has many different words, and people are always afraid of saying the wrong thing. I know so many people are like, "I'll see you later. Oh, I'm so sorry because I can't see." Well, see is a word in the English language, so we use it just the same. I'll say, "I'm watching TV," or "I'm watching a video." People are like, "How are you watching it?" Well, that's the word you use. So using appropriate language, making sure that we think of people first language, persons with disabilities, individuals with disabilities, not that disabled person. It just sounds much nicer, and just being aware that the language we use is inclusive. Similarly, it may not be, somebody may not want to identify their disability in when they're describing their identity. So you're not going to say, "That person in the wheelchair." No, you're going to say an individual that uses a wheelchair, because the wheelchair isn't part of them. When we communicate, we want to feel comfortable communicating with individuals with disabilities and not feel like we're walking on eggshells. So just use English language properly. And you're pretty sure majority of the time people with disabilities will let you know what language they're comfortable with, how they want to be identified and addressed, as well as they'll tell you when you're out of line. I think that's the best way. But just talk to people with disabilities just so you talk about anybody else. Now, however, there may be some different ways of communicating that we have to adapt to. Some people may need you to talk slower, especially if they're hard of hearing, they're trying to read your lips. Perhaps we want to make sure that you're not talking down to people with disabilities because you think you're better than. So just, again, you're addressing somebody just normally. Usually when it comes to communication, as we talked previously, when using communication devices, it may take a little bit more time. Being prepared to spend that extra time with people to have those conversations, but not thinking that you have to talk really, really slow or really, really loud. I've got that a lot of time. I'm like, I'm blind, not deaf. So again, communication is vital. It's key.
Now, moving on to the next thing, you were talking about communication being key. It's empathy, being able to understand what people are going through. So let's talk a little bit about empathy and advocacy. How can someone develop empathy and understanding?
Well, I think it's important for us to take time to put ourselves in the other person's position. How would I feel if I couldn't see? How would I feel if I had difficulty hearing? So having that empathy to try and understand, listen to their lived experiences, and trying to process that, not only will it help educate people and inform them so that they're more well-versed and understand a little bit better, but also it'll help create advocates for people. And what I mean is, all of us are allies for many different groups, but sometimes as individuals with disabilities, we need somebody to help step up and say, "This isn't right," and advocate on our behalf. So advocacy is also very key. Now, advocacy is done in many different forms, individual, as a group, as well as on the political side, when you take it all the way up to the legislation, when the Human Rights Tribunal. So it comes in different forms, but I think it starts with empathy, taking a minute to really reflect on how would you feel and putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
It's a very important thing to do, is how would you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it coming the other way. We have talked a lot about communication today.
Yes.
We've talked a bit about work, we've talked a bit about education, both of which require presentations.
Oh, yes.
So how can you create a presentation that is accessible to all?
Okay, the first thing, you need to know your audience. Who's in your audience? What is the topic you're talking about, and how can you make it inclusive for everybody? We all know many people like PowerPoints, and we want to make sure that they're created in a simplistic way. Yes, you want it to look good, but make sure the font is easy to read. Not so much information on all the slides. Point form is good. Have some images, but of course, make sure you're describing what's on the PowerPoint in the way you talk. Vocal variety is key, making sure you're engaging people with anecdotes and stories to illustrate what you're talking about. And of course, making sure that your equipment is accessible. So what do I mean by that? Make sure that whatever platform you're choosing is accessible for many people. But Sean, it's not just about the presentation itself. Where is the presentation taking place? Is it in a space that's accessible? Is the room set up for success for everybody, the presenter, the individuals attending? Is it accessible to the public transportation route? Is there parking? All of these things, because if people can't get to your presentation, nobody's going to be there for you to do your presentation. So accessibility goes far and beyond far, far, far and beyond just the presentation itself, but also making sure that you have activities throughout your presentation so that people can have a little bit of a break and be mindful of the time. You don't want to drone on and on and on without some sort of engagement with your audience. Because I don't know about you, but I fall asleep when I'm bored. Do you?
Oh, quite often.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even have to be bored to fall asleep. So
There you go. So we want to make sure we're engaging people through storytelling, anecdotes, stats, a little bit dry.
you mentioned something earlier that I'd like to know if it would fit here. What about alt text?
Alt text. Well, if the person's on the computer, alt text would come in. So that alt text is, when you click it, it'll read a description for you. So in this presentation, you'd hope the presenter would describe the images like you have been doing for me. And as well, really decide, is PowerPoint absolutely necessary? Now, we all know that it's not just about visual disabilities we have to consider. Everybody has a different style of learning. There's auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, visual learners, writing and reading learners. So having activities or different parts of your presentation that includes every type of learning will also engage everybody in the audience.
Great stuff to know.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about some strategies on how to implement inclusive spaces.
Okay.
When we're looking at things like physical accessibility, we want to ensure that entrances, pathways, and common areas are wheelchair accessible and have ramps or elevators where necessary. Even handrails, grab bars in restrooms, things of that nature. What about communication and information? Use clear, simple language and written materials and signage to improve understanding for all individuals, including those with cognitive disabilities. Digital accessibility. Design websites and online platforms following the accessibility guidelines. Inclusive events and gatherings. Choose venues that are accessible to individuals with various disabilities, including wheelchair users and those with visual or hearing impairments, and individuals with sensory sensitivities. That's a big one right there, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I know this seems like a big list, Sean, but the thing is, the more that we do this, the more we implement it into everyday design, it's going to become the norm. I want to just talk about the event space. It's just so important because not only about the accessibility about getting to this place and participating in the event itself, but even as something as simple as, can you reach the coffee? You know, is it accessible for that? Are there signs pointing you in the right direction? Because if it's in a big space, where do you know to go? And the other thing that we haven't really touched upon in this webinar, I wanted to mention, especially at events, is sense sensitivity. So in the workplace, as well as events, going scent-free, meaning no strong perfumes, because that's a disability in its own. It's another invisible disability. But some people can almost stop breathing because of certain scents. So being mindful that this is included perhaps in your pre-package for events, letting people know it's a scent-free environment, making sure that you have everything lined up. And again, that you ask people about dietary needs, about any assistance needed, whether it's large print workbooks, etc., depending on the event. If you have an ask prior to the event, it just helps everything become more inclusive.
That's a very important part right there, just keeping everything inclusive. Now, carrying on with our strategies on how to implement inclusive spaces, assistive technologies and tools. Provide assistive technology tools such as screen readers, magnifiers, or communication devices in public spaces to enhance accessibility. Staff training and awareness. Train staff and employees to be inclusive, respectful, and aware of disability-related issues. Feedback mechanisms. Create a feedback mechanism for individuals to share their accessibility experiences and suggestions for improvement. Community engagement. Involve individuals with disabilities in decision-making processes when designing and evaluating the accessibility of spaces. And continuous improvement. Regularly review and assess the accessibility of spaces and services to identify areas for improvement. Melanie?
So let's go through a few of these. Assistive technology is essential. When you think about the libraries, now you'll see there's computers that have the opportunity to have a screen reader on it, things like that. Magnifiers are handy to have at many different places wherever forms need to be filled out. Taking the time to make sure that you have somebody that has experience with ASL and making sure that if required, upon request, you have large print, braille, other communication formats. All of these become the norm once you understand the I.D.E.A and Accessible Canada Act. Also, the importance of having the opportunity for feedback is essential. You want to hear how your space is accessible or not, because you can make changes as you need. And it's not a once every 10 years thing. It should be on an ongoing basis. And of course, the final piece is getting feedback from people with disabilities, the lived experience. That's kind of like the Accessible Canada Act. Nothing about us without us. Having people come together, talk about what needs to happen, the changes need to be made, and what's going well, because again, we want to have that feedback. It's so important.
And it's very important to note that you have to have the feedback, because sometimes people want to help, but they're not helping.
Again, it goes back to never assume. And also understanding that it's different for everybody. So getting everybody's different perspective at the table allows us to learn and grow, and also make more adjustments to help it be more accessible and more inclusive.
So let's take a look at what we've done today, Melanie.
Okay.
A little bit of a summary, if you will.
All right.
We've talked about universal design, we've talked about inclusive spaces, we've talked about education and workplace policies. What else have we gone through? What are the highlights for you?
Oh my gosh, we talked about education, we talked about events, we talked about strategies, we talked about what happens if it's not accessible. And you know, I think most importantly, accessibility isn't just the right thing to do. It makes good business sense. It also is the law.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time and joining us here today. If you're looking for more information, please reach out to Connect for Life at connectforlife.charity@gmail.com or Gaining Vision 2020 at gainingvision2020@gmail.com. Until next time, everybody, I'm Sean Pickard. Bye for now. Melanie?
Thanks so much, Sean, and thanks to everybody. I encourage you to continue to do your own research. Take some time, reflect. Is your environment accessible? Is your workplace accessible? And if not, why not? Take what you've learned today and apply it. And remember, never assume, always ask, how can I best support you? Until next time, thank you.